Welcome to my sci-fi stories. If you love thrilling sci-fi tales, subscribe now and hit the bell so you never miss an adventure. Let's get into it. The morning sun barely peeked over the horizon, its golden light swallowed by the gathering storm clouds. The battlefield stretched before them, rolling hills, dense patches of trees, and a narrow rocky pass leading to the fortress of Iridan, a Solmara stronghold perched atop a jagged plateau. Its gray stone walls, reinforced with layers of enchanted steel, stood resilient against the test of time, an immovable bastion of the Empire's dominance. Yet today, it would be tested like never before. Atop a nearby ridge, Marcus Cruz stood with arms crossed, his gaze fixed on the enemy fortress. His breath came out in controlled exhales, the calm before the inevitable storm. His HUD displayed tactical readouts, sent from the scouting drones that Ryan had deployed the night before. Heat signatures, wall integrity scans, enemy troop positioning, everything they needed was there. Behind him, the Velmaran army was assembled in formation, an unusual mix of medieval and modern, of magic and technology. Elven archers, their bows enchanted with wind magic, stood beside beastkin warriors armed with Magitech firearms. Human knights in shimmering armor held tower shields infused with defensive spells, while battle mages traced arcane sigils in the air, preparing incantations. Behind them, the massive Thunderstrike Cannons, experimental Magitech artillery, hummed with latent power as Ryan Cook and his engineers made final adjustments. The enemy was equally prepared. The Solmara Empire's elite troops, dressed in black and crimson armor, manned the walls, crossbows at the ready, their battle mages already chanting. Above them, squadrons of Wyvern Knights patrolled the skies, their beasts' piercing screeches warning of impending bloodshed. The first move belonged to Velmara. Marcus took a slow breath and raised his Magitech communicator. Begin the assault. Ryan adjusted the targeting coordinates on the Thunderstrike Cannons, his fingers flying across the console. His team worked in unison, loading mana-infused shells into the chambers. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The arcane shells streaked across the battlefield, piercing through the morning mist, their cores pulsing with compressed mana. The moment they struck the fortress walls, the air shattered with deafening explosions. Stone and metal burst apart, sending enemy soldiers flying. Shockwaves rippled outward, throwing formations into disarray. A second volley followed, targeting the gate, the watchtowers, and the defensive battlements. From within the fortress, General Cale Vorton watched in disbelief. "By the gods, they can destroy enchanted stone," he growled, gripping the hilt of his sword. An officer stumbled forward, his face pale. "General, we must reinforce the walls." "No." Cale's eyes burned with fury. "Send out the Skyriders. If they want to play gods, we will remind them that the heavens belong to us." A deep, bone-chilling screech echoed across the battlefield. From the highest towers, dozens of Solmara's elite Wyvern Knights took to the sky, their black-scaled mounts spiraling upward like shadows against the storm clouds. They swooped down in coordinated formations, their riders wielding spears crackling with lightning magic. "Incoming aerial units," Marcus shouted into his communicator. The first wave struck. Bolts of arcane lightning crashed into the Velmaran ranks, sending shields shattering, soldiers screaming, and the battlefield into chaos. One wyvern dove straight for the artillery line, its rider aiming for Ryan's command station. "Oh, hell no," Ryan growled, pulling his Magitech pistol. Before he could fire, a single shot rang out. The wyvern screeched in agony, its rider jerking violently before falling off, a bullet hole clean through his chest. Mike lowered his Magitech sniper rifle, the barrel still smoking. "Nice try," he muttered, reloading with precision. The Velmaran mages retaliated, launching arcane flak rounds into the sky. Explosions of fire, ice, and wind magic burst around the wyverns, disrupting their formations. Alara, standing in the heart of the mage corps, extended both hands. Defensive barrier, ward of the tempest, a shimmering dome of wind and mana expanded outward, deflecting the enemy's next lightning barrage. The tide of battle shifted once more. With the aerial threat neutralized, it was time for the final push. Ryan's engineers deployed the Magitech combat mech, its towering frame marching forward with earth-shaking steps, energy cannons charged and ready. Mike led the mobile strike force, breaching the shattered gates and engaging Solmara's elite soldiers in brutal close-quarters combat. Marcus, wielding a custom Magitech rifle and a short energy blade, fought his way toward the command tower. Inside the fortress walls, chaos reigned. Steel clashed against steel. Spells collided mid-air, creating bursts of multicolored light. The smell of burning wood and blood filled the air. Mike's squad moved like ghosts, their training in modern urban warfare proving devastating against an enemy still using traditional formations. Grenades infused with shock magic detonated, breaking up enemy clusters, while Magitech rifles fired precise, armor-piercing rounds. Meanwhile, the combat mech tore through enemy barricades, its arm-mounted pulse cannons blasting apart resistance points. At the forefront, Marcus and his strike team carved a path toward the command tower, where General Cale Vorton awaited. As Marcus entered the command chamber, Cale stood waiting, his enchanted longsword glowing with malevolent energy. The room was dimly lit by flickering torches, shadows dancing along the stone walls. Cale smirked. "You think because you wield foreign weapons, you can win this war?" Marcus leveled his Magitech rifle. "No, but I'm about to take your fort." Cale lunged. Marcus dodged, rolling to the side, but Cale was fast. A burst of dark energy followed, shattering the floor beneath him. The fight had begun. The distant rumble of battle echoed through the stone halls of Fort Iridan. Explosions thundered beyond the walls, shaking the fortress as the Velmaran forces pushed deeper inside. Screams of dying men, the sharp crackle of Magitech rifles, and the clash of enchanted steel against modern armor filled the air. Marcus stood at the top of the command tower, his breathing steady despite the chaos surrounding him. He gripped his Magitech rifle, its sleek black and silver frame still warm from recent combat. His HUD displayed an ammo readout, 4 shots left. Not ideal, but enough to finish the fight. Across from him stood General Cale Vorton of the Solmara Empire, tall, broad-shouldered, and clad in ornate, obsidian-black armor etched with glowing violet runes. Cale was every bit the image of an elite warrior. His face was hardened by years of war, a long scar running from his brow to his cheek. His piercing amber eyes locked onto Marcus with a predator's intensity. The general's sword pulsed with dark magic, a masterpiece of enchanted craftsmanship. The runic symbols along its blade shimmered, feeding on the wielder's life force to enhance speed and strength. Marcus clenched his jaw. He'd read reports about Cale, a seasoned warrior with over 100 confirmed duels. The man was a master of enchanted combat, undefeated in single combat for over a decade. "This guy isn't just some noble-playing soldier," Cale smirked. "You are brave, Captain Cruz, but bravery alone does not win wars." He raised his sword, the blade humming with lethal energy. Marcus shifted his stance, adjusting his grip on his rifle. "Think, he's faster than you, stronger than you. You can't fight him head-on." Cale moved first. With a burst of speed unnatural for his size, he closed the distance in an instant. Marcus barely had time to react. Cale's blade slashed forward, aiming for his throat. He twisted his body, narrowly dodging the fatal strike. The air hummed from the sheer force of the swing. Marcus retaliated, snapping his rifle up and firing point blank. Cale's sword flashed in a violet arc, deflecting the plasma shot with impossible precision. Sparks flew, the energy dispersing harmlessly against the enchanted steel. "Shit!" Marcus dove to the side, rolling behind a toppled pillar for cover. Cale chuckled, his voice a deep, confident rumble. "Your weapons rely too much on distance, Captain. In a true fight, steel will always triumph." Marcus checked his HUD. 3 shots left. His fingers brushed against his belt, wrapping around a Magitech stun grenade. "Let's see how well that steel handles this." Cale charged again, his sword raised high. Marcus primed the grenade and tossed it at the ground. A sudden burst of concussive light exploded outward. Cale stumbled, momentarily blinded. His enhanced reflexes were thrown off, his footwork faltering. That second was all Marcus needed. He switched to full auto, unleashing a barrage of plasma rounds, not at Cale directly, but at the walls and floor around him. The shots shattered stone and metal, collapsing debris onto the general. Cale coughed as dust and rubble filled the air. He couldn't see. He couldn't move properly. "Got you." Marcus closed the distance, drawing his energy combat knife. Cale's vision cleared just in time to see Marcus already within striking distance. The fight turned brutal. Cale swung with deadly precision, his sword a blur of motion. Marcus parried with his energy blade, the high-frequency vibrations countering the enchanted steel. Kale was stronger. Marcus was faster. Blow after blow, they clashed, the chamber filling with the sounds of energy crackling against enchanted steel. Kale growled, frustration creeping into his strikes. You should have died already. Marcus ducked a downward slash and countered with a quick stab to Kale's exposed ribs. The energy blade sank into flesh, cauterizing instantly. Kale staggered back, eyes wide. That's the difference between you and me, Marcus said, breathing heavily. You think skill alone wins wars, but a soldier fights dirty. Kale gritted his teeth, his body trembling. The wound wasn't fatal, but in this fight, one mistake was enough. Marcus raised his rifle. One shot. Kale collapsed to his knees, blood dripping from his lips. His sword slipped from his grasp, the violet glow fading. You will never defeat the Solmara Empire, Marcus exhaled. Maybe, but I just took your fortress. He pulled the trigger. A single plasma round struck Kale between the eyes. The general fell forward, lifeless. Outside, the battle was reaching its climax. Mike Morgan and his troops pushed deep into the fortress, securing key control points. Ryan Cook's combat mech crushed enemy defenses, its pulse cannons melting through the last bastions of resistance. The Velmaran army overwhelmed the remaining Solmara forces, their Magitech weaponry proving decisive. The fortress of Iridan had fallen. As Marcus stepped out of the command tower, his armor scorched, his rifle still smoking, the Velmaran troops erupted in cheers. Ryan's voice crackled over the comms. Took your sweet time, Captain. You good? Marcus exhaled, wiping blood from his chin. Yeah, it's done. Mike walked up, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. Solmara's going to be pissed about this. Marcus looked over the battlefield, his expression unreadable. Let them be pissed, he thought. This was just the beginning. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button, share with fellow sci-fi fans, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of the journey. Stay tuned for more adventures. Here is another video I know you will enjoy.